بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه وبعد. Sincerest apologies for our beginning at this late hour. Some of you may be aware of the fact that I got a flat tire and the whole car fell down on the jack and all type of other مشكلات ومشاكل. لكن الحمد لله, that is the dunya, ikhwan. That is the nature of the dunya. Indeed, the ahkam that we were discussing were some of the issues related to siyam. And as we said, because of the near nature of Ramadan, it is befitting that we discuss some of the ahkam of siyam and fasting generally. And we ended our discussion yesterday upon that which the Messenger ﷺ used to break his fast with. We said that he used to break his fast with Ramadan. And those are the soft dates that you'll find if any of you have ever been to Medina during Ramadan. There is a soft date that is usually frozen and kept frozen so it remains soft, and it is that is usually given for the breaking of the fast, the rutab, nice soft date. And you can get them in our countries. Usually during Ramadan we receive, in England we usually receive them in small boxes. Oftentimes they come from Iraq and some of those countries in that region, but they are under sifa, and the characteristic that occurs in those hadith, that is that they are still a soft date and they haven't become chewy as of yet. The second best date to break one's fast with is the tamar. And the tamar is the date that has become chewy. And so oftentimes we hasten to the medjool dates, the large Medina, that is a large date, because it is a nice, chewy, tasty date and usually expensive. That isn't the best date to use though. Isn't the best date to use it for. If you're able to find a soft date, then that has precedence over the nice, large Medina, medjool dates. Now, and if he wasn't able to find tamar, then he would use water. He would break his fast upon water. And that is the origin as it relates to the breaking of the fast. And that is, of course, the initial breaking. Now, it is permissible to enjoy oneself with the type of food and the various foods that one likes. You may break and eat there and after whatsoever you please. But the initial breaking should be in accordance with the sunnah. And so one breaks his fast upon that which is sunnah, and then whatever he wishes to eat there and after, it is permissible for him, and it is absolutely fine. If you want to eat there and far that up with some doubles, then it's entirely up to you. If you want to eat rice and peas and chicken, that's entirely up to you. But the actual breaking of the fast should be done in accordance with the sunnah of the Messenger, either that it is broken with rutab or tamar, then in the chewy date, or with water. And we said likewise, the date or the breaking of the fast of one should be hastened. Breaking of the fast should be hastened, and one does not rely rigidly upon the timetable. When the sun disappears, ikhwan sets, it is time to break the fast. The timetables are not from Allah Azza wa Jalla, they are not revelation from the sky. And therefore, Allah Azza wa Jalla has laid down and placed and given to us, from the ease that is present within the sunnah, that which makes the affair easy. And the ease that is present within the sunnah is that when the sun disappears and darkness appears from the other side of the sky, it is time to break the fast. We mentioned the hadith yesterday where the sun sets from here. The Prophet said, when the sun sets from here and the sky becomes dark from there, then indeed the fasting person has broken his fast. We said yesterday likewise that the scholars have differed concerning the statement that indeed the fasting person has broken his fast. Does it mean that he has actually broken, the fast is broken even if he continues to refrain from food and drink? Or does it mean that it is time to break the fast? And of course, because of the wording, this difference of opinion has occurred. That the Prophet ﷺ, he said, فَقَدْ أَفْطَرَ الصَّائِمُ, that he has broken his fast. And so, on the basis of the nature of the wording, the difference of opinion has occurred among the people of knowledge. Is it that the fast has broken even if you continue to refrain? Or is it that the fast is not broken until one eats and the time for the breaking of the fast has come upon that individual? And we said that which is most conclusive is that it is the time for the breaking of the fast, since some of the companions used to practice wisal. That is, that they saw that the Prophet ﷺ would continue to fast after the time for breaking the fast came about. And so they too practiced wisal, that is, they continued to fast after Maghrib. And so the Prophet ﷺ prohibited them from doing so. And so they said, "Well, Ya Rasulullah, innaka tuwasil. You practice wisal." And so the Prophet ﷺ responded to them by saying, "Verily, I am not like you. إِنَّمَا يُطْعِمُنِي رَبِّي وَيَسْقِينِي." He said that, "Verily, I am not like you. My Lord gives me to drink and gives me food and drink." And so the prohibition against wisal then, and that is that they would continue to fast after the period of Maghrib. The fact that it was done and the Messenger of Allah prohibited from it has in it an indication of the fact that the fasting person does not break his fast until he physically breaks his fast. And that is, with the time of Maghrib, the fast or the time for breaking the fast has come upon them, but the fast is not broken until one actually eats or drinks. And so the fast then continues to be observed until a person eats a morsel. Similarly, that which indicates the fact that the statement فَقَدْ أَفْطَرَ الصَّائِمُ, that indeed the fasting person has broken his fast, that it means it is the time to break the fast and not that it has actually broken, is the statement of the Messenger of Allah, لَا يَزَالُ النَّاسِ بِخَيْرٍ مَا أَفْطَرَ الْفِطْرَ. Prophet he said that مَا أَجَّلُ الْفِطْرَ, that indeed the people will not cease to be upon good as long as they hasten to break the fast. And that is that we do not wait for 10, 15, 20 minutes after the time to break the fast as a precautionary measure, just to make sure that it's definitely breakfast time. As soon as the sun disappears, then we break the fast. Prophet then, the fact that he mentioned that indeed the people will not cease to be in good as long as they hasten to break the fast, again, that indicates that the fast is broken by a person physically, that one has to actually break it in order for it to be considered a fast that is broken. Since if it were the case that with just the setting of the sun the fast is broken, then that statement wouldn't have any relevance. That the statement مَا يَزَالُ النَّاسُ بِخَيْرٍ, the people will not cease being upon good as long as they hasten to break the fast, and that wouldn't have any meaning, because the fast would have been broken anyway as soon as Maghrib comes in. Similarly, Ikhwan, one of the indications that Prophet ﷺ used to practice this hastening to break the fast, as we mentioned yesterday, was that hadith wherein the companions, they saw the sun disappear behind the mountain, and the Prophet ﷺ, he said, bring the food, indeed it is time to break the fast. And so one of the companions stood upon his riding beast, and he said, but I can still see the sun, O Messenger of Allah. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he asked, or he sent for some of the food, and it was gruel, which was, as we mentioned, a porridge-like meal that they used to eat. He said, he took some of it and he ate it in front of them. And then he said, indeed, إِذَا غَرَبَ الشَّمْسُ مِنْ هَا هُنَا وَأَقْبَلَ اللَّيْلُ مِنْ هَا هُنَا فَقَدْ أَفْطَرَ الصَّائِمُ. That indeed, if the sun sets from here and the night approaches from here, because ordinarily sunset time will have, when the sun has set, there is something from darkness that appears in one side of the sky. So the sun sets here, we have the shafaq al-ahmar, or the redness from the setting of the sun. And then if we look towards the other side of the sky, you'll see something from darkness within the sky. So all of these, ikhwan, are signs that it is time to break the fast. Similarly, we said, we rounded up yesterday, with the sentence of the Messenger of Allah, مَنْ مَاتَ وَعَلَيْهِ الصِّيَامِ صَامَ عَنْهُ وَلِيُّهُ. Whosoever dies and he has fasting upon him, صَامَ عَنْهُ وَلِيُّهُ. His wali, his guardian, a reference here to his inheritor, fasts on his behalf. His inheritor fasts on his behalf. And the inheritors, the origin concerning the inheritors is that Ahlul Ilm categorize the inheritors, the scholars of Fara'id categorize the inheritors into three main categories. We have the usul, that is as it relates to those who inherit by way of lineage. Those who inherit by way of lineage. And those are the ones that are intended ordinarily by the hadith. The inheritors are three main categories: those who inherit due to marriage, those who inherit due to lineage, and those who inherit on the basis of the emancipation of a slave. As far as those who inherit by marriage, then it is the husband and wife. Those who inherit by lineage, then they are of three categories. We have the usul, which is who are those individuals who are responsible for our existence. That is, they are the ones who, because of them, we exist. Allah Azza wa Jalla has made them a means for our existence within the dunya. And they are mother, father. Who is it that causes or because of them we exist? Mother, father, and grandparents. Mother, father, and grandparents. Our grandparents were the cause of the existence of our parents, and our parents were the cause of our existence. Allah Azza wa Jal made them a means for our existence. So they are referred to in the science of inheritance as the usul. That is, they are one's origins. And then we have from the inheritors the furu'. And they are those who have come from us. And that is a reference to children and grandchildren. Children and grandchildren. As it relates to grandchildren, though, it is only a reference to sons. And it is or sons' children. And it is not a reference to the children of one's daughters. So it is a reference to sons, daughters, and then sons. Again, it is a reference to sons, daughters, and then sons, and sons' daughters. Sons' children. They are the furu'. They are those who are considered our inheritors from among our children and our offspring. And the third category are known as the hawashi. The hawashi are those who are connected to us, are related to us, but not direct relation. They are those who are related to us by way of other individuals. And they are of two main categories: the category of ukhuwa and the category of umuma. The category of ukhuwa are those who are our brothers. The bracket or the band of our brothers. That is, our full brothers, our full sisters, our half brothers through our father, our half sisters through our father, our half sisters through our mother, and our half brothers through our mother. They are considered the band of ukhuwa, the relatives that are from our brothers, our brothers and sisters, our siblings. Similarly, we have al-umuma. That is the bracket of our paternal uncles and their children. And the bracket of the paternal uncle is a reference to one's father's full brother. One's father's full brother, or one's father's half brother through their father. One's father's half brother through their father. They are the only uncles that are considered from our inheritors and their children. When we're speaking of their children, we're speaking of their sons. speaking of their sons. So one paternal uncle's full brother, one paternal uncle and his children, his sons, and one's half paternal uncle, who is the father's half brother through their father, and his sons. They are the inheritors. And so when he said then, Man mata, this hadith, Man mata wa alayhi siyam, sama anhu waliyuhu, whoever dies and has fasting that he has not performed, there is fasting to be performed, then one of those, the closest of those inheritors, are the wali or are the guardian that should fast on his behalf. So it is either his sons or his parents, or it is the hawashi, that is his brothers or his uncles and their children, their sons. And so on the affair then of fasting, if one passes away and there is fasting, it is those individuals who should fast on behalf of the one who is deceased. And we mentioned that because of the fact that it is oftentimes there are oftentimes mistakes that occur in relation to the affair, and that a relative will fast on behalf of that individual, but that relative is not considered from his inheritance. That relative is not considered from his inheritance. So for example, a man passes away, he has a few days from Ramadan to fast, and so his maternal auntie fasts on his behalf. She is not from his awliya, not from the inheritors that are considered. Rather, it should be from the inheritors of one that are known and considered to be inheritors. So we continue then, in this section we make mention of the Siyam at-Tatawwur. Siyam at-Tatawwur is a reference to the supererogatory fast. The supererogatory fast, as we mentioned yesterday, they are generally one of two main types. They are those fasts that are mutlaq and absolute, and they are the supererogatory fasts that are performed for a reason. The absolute supererogatory fast is that a person just decides that he's going to fast today. And it isn't any special day, or there isn't any special significance, but he feels like performing an act of worship, so he decides, tomorrow I'm going to fast. That is permissible for him, just as it will be permissible for a man to decide, I'm going to pray 2 rak'ah. تقربا إلى الله عز وجل. I feel like I need to do some more acts of worship. I feel like I need to draw closer to Allah. So let me, I've got some time. Let me pray some rak'at, some nawafil, some supererogatory prayers, and supplicate and beseech Allah Azza wa Jal in this spare time that I have. It's permissible for a person to do so. It doesn't necessitate that he has to perform a salah that is done for a particular reason. Similarly, when it comes to fasting, the supererogatory fast is performed by an individual regardless of whether he has an established reason to perform it, or regardless of whether it is from the supererogatory fasts that are done because of a particular day or occasion or what have you. But in this section we will discuss, and the Imam, that is Imam Shaykh Abdul-Wahhāb bin Nasir Sa'di, rahimahullah ta'ala, he discusses the supererogatory fasts that are performed for a reason. From the first of them, he mentions is وَسُئِلَ عَنْ صَوْمِ يَوْمِ عَرَفَةٍ فَقَالَ يُكَفِّرُ السَّنَةَ الْمَاضِيَةَ وَالْبَاقِيَةَ. The first of them he discusses is fasting on the day of Arafah. He said that the Messenger ﷺ was asked concerning fasting on the day of Arafah, and he said that it expiates the sins for the previous year and the year to come. It expiates the sins for the previous year and the year to come. And that is, from last Arafah to this Arafah, it expiates. And from this Arafah to next Arafah, it expiates the sins of those 2 years. And that, ikhwan, is subhanAllah, fadlun azim. It is a tremendous virtue that a person should perform one day's fasting and it expiates, ikhwan, the day or the year, the period of 2 years, and that is without doubt extreme rahmah and mercy from Allah Azza wa Jal, and it is a form of khair that we shouldn't neglect when it comes upon us. If it so happens that a person in the middle of the day of Arafah, he realizes that it was the day of Arafah, the middle of the day of Arafah, he realizes that it is Arafah. He goes to the masjid to pray Salat al-Dhuhr, and when he enters upon the brothers, they seem tired, they seem thirsty. And so he asks, and they say, what do you mean, you're not fasting? And so he says, why? So they say, it's Arafah today. And so he responds, Subhanallah, he completely slipped my mind. Can he continue to fast the rest of the day? If it is that he realizes that it is Arafah, he hasn't eaten, and it is now Dhuhr time, can he complete the day of Arafah's fast? Shaykh. He complete it? Or is it khalas, he's missed it?
Maybe that is now has intention, or they just maybe can't do it because no is aware and has intention.
طيب. Well, what did we say? We said yesterday the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, مَنْ لَمْ يُبِيتَ النِّيَّةَ مِنَ اللَّيْلِ فَلَا صِيَامَ لَهُ. The one who does not have the niyyah from the night before, then he has no fast. And so, on that basis, if in the middle of the day of Arafah, this great virtuous day of fast, he feels already the loss of 2 years expiation of sin. It is still the day of Arafah, and he desperately wants to fast it, and he hasn't eaten. Inshallah.
Does the hadith that you mentioned specifically refers to Shahr Ramadan or also Yawm al-Arafah?
Which one? Which one? The same hadith?
Yeah. No,
We mentioned yesterday, the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha. You remember the hadith of Aisha, the Prophet ﷺ entered upon Aisha in the day and said, is there any food? So she said, no. He said, then I'm fasting. And that was in the day. Which indicates then, as the scholars mentioned, I had mentioned that the text is a clear indication of the fact that for the supererogatory prayer, it is not a necessity to have the niyyah from the night before. For the supererogatory prayer. In fact, the messenger, fast. The supererogatory fast, you understood what I was saying. But the supererogatory fast, and so the fact that Prophet ﷺ did so in the middle of the day, is there any food, Aisha? She said no. He said that I'm fasting. It's a clear evidence then that with the supererogatory fast, and this is Yawm al-Arafah, either we're going to say it's wajib, or we're going to say it falls under the supererogatory fast. And so with the supererogatory fast, the origin then, Ikhwan, is that it is permissible to start fasting in the middle of the day. So that man then can continue fasting. Hey. A second scenario. A man from the night before, he wakes, he knows tomorrow is the day of Arafah. He has every intent to fast the day. Every intent. Wakes in the morning, before Fajr, he has his suhoor, eats his food, prays Fajr, and then he goes to sleep after Fajr. He wakes up, And as normal, he has his cornflakes, he has a cup of tea, and he eats as normal, has his breakfast as normal. And then at 12 o'clock, he says to his wife, "Have you prepared lunch yet?" And so she responds by saying, "You're not fasting." And so he says, "Subhanallah, I completely forgot. I already had breakfast." Does he continue his fast?
Yes.
Or is it too late? He's already broken the fast. He continues. After the big breakfast, cornflakes and tea, he continues his fast. He continues his fast. Since, as we mentioned yesterday, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man nasiya wa akala aw shariba," that whosoever forgets and eats and drinks, then he should complete his fast. For indeed it is Allah Azza wa Jal who has given him food and drink. And so that is a ni'mah from Allah Azza wa Jal. He wakes up, he prepares for the fast, he makes every intent, and he has breakfast from Allah Azza wa Jal, and he continues making his fast. For indeed it is Allah Azza wa Jal that has been merciful to him on that day. Now, and so from the fast, then the first of the supererogatory fasts is the day of Arafah. And no doubt the day is a day of virtue. Khayru yawmin, as the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, as occurs in that hadith that occurs in Sahih Muslim, Khayru yawmin tala'at alayhi shams, that the best day that the sun has risen upon is the day of Arafah. The best day that the sun has risen upon is the day of Arafah. Now, the Imam he continues, وَسُئِلَ عَنْ سَوْمِ عَاشُورَا. The Prophet ﷺ was asked concerning fasting the day of Ashura, فَقَالْ يُكَفِّرُ السَّنَةِ الْمَاضِيَةِ. He was asked about fasting the day of Ashura, and he said concerning it that it expiates the previous year's sin. As it relates to the day of Arafah, which day for? The day of Arafah. Anybody acquainted with the day of Arafah? Which day of the Islamic month? Or which day within which Islamic month is it? The day of Arafah is the 9th of Dhul-Hijjah. The 9th day of Dhul-Hijjah. And it is the day that all of the Hujjaj, they will be carrying out some of the, or one of the greatest sha'ira from the sha'a'ir of Hajj. And that is that they will be present in the plain of Arafah, making dua to Allah Azza wa Jal from the time of Dhuhr to the time of Maghrib. The one who performs Hajj, Ikhwan, the day of Arafah is the most important day of his Hajj. On the 8th day, which is known as Yawm al-Tarwiyah, the companions Ridwanullahi alayhim, they would prepare for tomorrow. Yawm al-Tarwiyah is from a term that indicates the watering of one's riding beasts. So they would prepare their riding beasts, water them, have them prepared in preparation for tomorrow. Since tomorrow, Yawm Arafah is the greatest day for the Hujjaj. And so they travel in the morning to Arafah, they listen to the sermon, they pray Salat al-Dhuhr and Salat al-Asr, shortened and joined at the time of Dhuhr, and then they remain in Arafah and make dua until Maghrib. The whole of that day, Ikhwan, is a day of dua. Thus, then at Maghrib, they leave Arafah and head to Muzdalifah. They don't pray Maghrib in Muzdalifah. They pray Maghrib. They don't pray Maghrib in Arafah. They leave Arafah, head to Muzdalifah and pray Maghrib and Isha in Muzdalifah to prepare for the following day. which is the most trying day in the whole of Hajj, Yawm al-Nahr. And it is the day, Ikhwan, that all of the major events of Hajj take place. Slaughtering of the animal, shaving the head, making tawaf al-ifada, sa'i, and the rest of the affairs that take place on that following day. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, Al-Hajju Arafah, that Hajj is Arafah. The one who misses standing on the day of Arafah, then he has no Hajj. And so, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that Allah Azza wa Jal, on the day of Arafah, descends to the lowest heaven. As is the case, Ikhwan, that Allah Azza wa Jal descends to the lowest heaven in the last third of the night. On the day of Arafah, Allah Azza wa Jal descends to the lowest heaven and He boasts to His angels. What have my servants come for? What have my servants, what are they gathered for? And so, Ikhwan, it is a day that is azim jiddan, a tremendous day. The Prophet ﷺ was also asked concerning fasting on the day of Ashura. Yawm Ashura is the 10th day of the month of Muharram. 10th day of the month of Muharram. And it is the day that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved Musa from Musa and his followers from Fir'aun and his armies. And so the Prophet ﷺ, when he came to Medina, he found the Yahud fasting on that day. And so he asked, what is it? Why do they fast? What day is this? And so the Prophet ﷺ, he was told that it is Yawm Ashura. Yawm Ashura, and it is the day that Allah Azza wa Jal saved Musa from Fir'aun and his armies. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he said that indeed we have more right to Musa than them. We have more right to Musa than them. And we are nearer, we are upon the way and the path of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. Prophet ﷺ was the brother of Musa, as he was the brother of the rest of the prophets and messengers. As the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, Al-Anbiya ikhwatun li'allat. That indeed the Anbiya, the prophets, are ikhwatun li'allat. That is, they are brothers who have the same father and different mothers. And so he said, Deenuhum wahid wa shara'i'u shatta. That indeed their religion is one, but the shara'i', the various manifestations of sharia that they all had, may have differed. So the prophets, Ikhwan, were all brothers one of another. And so the statement of the Messenger is the haqq, that we have more right to Musa than them. They abandoned the book of Musa, abandoned the path of Musa, abandoned following the messenger that Musa gave a covenant that when he comes, they will follow him. So we have more right to Musa than them. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he said that if I live to the following year, لَأَصُومَنَّ التَّاسِعَةِ. If I live to the following year, then I shall likewise fast alongside it the 9th day. And that is in order to oppose and differ from the Yahud who only fasted the 10th. So the Sunnah then is to fast the 9th and the 10th. It is also established for the one who was not able to fast the 9th to fast the 10th and the 11th. Fast the 10th and the 11th, but the 9th and the 10th, Ikhwan, is the most virtuous and most in accordance with the desire of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Imam continues, وَسُئِلَ عَنْ صَوْمِ يَوْمِ الْإِثْنَيْنِ فقال ذاك يوم ولدت فيه وبعثت فيه أو أنزل علي فيه رواه مسلم. He mentions that the Prophet ﷺ was similarly asked about fasting on Yawm al-Ithnayn, fasting on Monday. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he responded by saying that this indeed was the day that I was born, and it is the day that I was sent as a prophet. Monday, and the Quran was revealed upon me on this day. And that, no doubt, Ikhwan, is the case that the day the Prophet ﷺ was sent as a message is the same day the Quran was revealed upon him. And so the statement, or the Quran was revealed upon me, is a reference to one and the same affair. The instance where the Prophet ﷺ was visited by Jibreel and he revealed to him Iqra. Now, and so the day then of Al-Ithnain is the day that the Prophet ﷺ was born. And Ikhwan, those who claim to have love for the Prophet ﷺ and thus they celebrate the birthday of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, and they say that those who do not celebrate the birthday of the Messenger ﷺ, then they are lacking as it relates to having love for the Messenger ﷺ. Then if they truly have love for the Messenger of Allah, they would manifest and do that which the Prophet ﷺ did. And that is that the Prophet ﷺ fasted on the day that he was born. Not that he celebrated and had a procession and put up glitter resemblant to the Christmas decorations and then paraded through the streets with an empty chair claiming that the Prophet ﷺ is hadir now, claiming that the Prophet ﷺ is present and looking. Not no doubt is batil, since لو كان خيرا لسبقونا إليه. If it was khair, then the companions would have preceded us to that. The companions would have done and been the first to perform that, to carry that out. And that then, Ikhwan, was something that was not done by the Messenger himself, not done by any of the companions, not done by the Tabi'een, not done by the Atba' Tabi'een. And one of the questions, Ikhwan, even if because the sad reality is when this is presented to them, they usually say, you have your way and we have ours. And this is something that we have done for many generations. And it is, there are hundreds of thousands of people in either the land that we come from or around the globe who celebrate the Prophet's birthday. And so, Ikhwan, the fact that numerous individuals celebrate the Prophet's birthday, as we studied, Ikhwan, in the Masail al-Jahiliyyah, Kathura, and looking and considering large numbers of individuals as an indication of truth, was from the way of the people of Jahiliyyah, or from the way of the tribe of Quraysh. If it were that it was the truth, then it must be that there's a large number, there will be a large number of people upon it. Similarly, the sad reality is that when we bring them back to the Sunnah, they're not interested in the fact that it is not established in the Sunnah or at the hands of any of the companions. So the question that we'll ask them then is, because ordinarily, Ikhwan, they either are Sufiya or Deobandiyya, and those who affiliate themselves with the madhab of Imam Abu Hanifa. So the question then is, did Abu Hanifa celebrate the birthday of the Prophet ﷺ? Did Imam Abu Hanifa celebrate the birthday of the Prophet ﷺ? And that is something that we will not find. We will not find that Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah ta'ala, that he celebrated the birthday of the Messenger alayhi salatu wassalam. Now, and so the origin then, Ikhwan, is that if one truly wishes to rejoice over the coming of the Messenger ﷺ and show our love for the Messenger alayhi salatu wassalam, then let us follow his sunnah. Prophet ﷺ, when he spoke of his own day of birth, he said, that was a day wulidtu fihi. Why he fasted on the day? It was the day that I was born on. And so, he didn't celebrate it, Ikhwan, he established ibadah. He established acts of worship on that day. Now, and so the fasting on Monday, Ikhwan, as is the case with Mondays and Thursdays, then both of them are established acts and continual acts of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Concerning fasting on Monday and Thursday, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, إنهما تعرض فيهما الأعمال فأحب أن يعرض عملي وأنا صائم. He said that indeed these are 2 days that the actions are presented, that is, that the actions of the servants are presented to Allah. And they are 2 days. If one occurs in some other narrations, that the angels who are consigned to each individual, that they exchange places and they ascend with the scrolls of one's deeds. They ascend with those scrolls. And the actions are presented, and the actions that a person has performed during that week are presented to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he said that is done on these 2 days, Monday and Thursdays. And so he said that I love that I am fasting on that day, the day that the actions are presented. He mentioned رحمه الله وقال من صام رمضان ثم أتبعه 6 من شوال كان كصيام الدهر رواه Muslim. Prophet ﷺ, he said, whomsoever fasts Ramadan and then he follows it up with 6 days in Shawwal, it is as though he has fasted the whole year. Whoever fasts Ramadan and then he follows it up with 6 days in Shawwal, then it is as though he has fasted the whole year. People of knowledge, Ikhwan, have mentioned and explained the reason for that is, as the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Al-Hasanatu bi-ashri amthaliha, that one's righteous actions are like, they are considered tenfold. When you perform a righteous action, then it is multiplied in reward tenfold. Al-Hasanatu bi-ashri amthaliha. And so if we were to take the month of Ramadan, we have how many days, Ikhwan? 29 or 30. The average month is a 30-day month. If we multiply that by 10, we have 300. If we will consider them days, we have 300. If you were to add 6 days to that, and multiply that by 10, we have another 60, which amounts to 360 days, or an equivalent of 360 days. And that is how some of the people of knowledge explain how fasting the extra 6 days كَانَ كَالصِّيَامِ الدَّهْرِ is like fasting the whole year, since the reward is multiplied tenfold. He goes on to mention now, as far as before we move on to the following point, as far as the 6 days of Shawwal are concerned, then there are a number of issues to be mentioned. The first issue is that which is related to the completion of Ramadan. Shaykh Abdul-Wahhāb, I remember asking our Shaykh concerning the affair, and the Shaykh responded by saying that it is a condition to complete the month of Ramadan in order to follow it with the 6 days. Since the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Man Sama Ramadan, whomsoever fasts Ramadan and then follows it up, thumma atba'ahu. And so since the Prophet ﷺ, he said, whomsoever fasts Ramadan, completes the fasting of Ramadan, then he follows it with 6 days of Shawwal, which indicates that, Ikhwan, that the 6 days of Shawwal, completion of Ramadan, is from its conditions. And so if a person traveled, he was ill, or he has a number of days to make up, he makes those days up, and then he follows it up with the 6 days of Shawwal. And that is from the virtuous actions, since he hastens to complete the month of Ramadan rather than leaving it till a few weeks before the following Ramadan. He quickly completes the fast of Ramadan, since he does not know whether or not he's going to pass away. And so the first thing then is that the fasting in Ramadan is a condition. Some of Ahlul Ilm hold that it is not a condition, it's not necessary, but the position of safety is to complete the month of Ramadan. The second issue is that which relates to the fasting of the days themselves. The days do not have to be fasted consecutively, which is a common misunderstanding, that the days have to be done one after the other consecutively. That is not necessary. and it is not a condition. And nothing within the hadith indicates that that is a condition, that it must be done consecutively one after the other. And so it is permissible then for a person to complete the month of Ramadan, and then he fasts the first of Shawwal, or rather he wouldn't fast the first of Shawwal, that would more than likely be Eid, where he fasts the second, third, fourth, then he fasts the 12th, then he fasts the 18th, then he fasts the 19th, and it is permissible for him to fast throughout the month of Shawwal as long as the 6 days of Shawwal are fasted. Again, ikhwan, these are great opportunities of virtue that we should not miss out on, ikhwan, or allow the shaitan to beguile us in relation to them. He mentions, وقال أبو ذر أمرنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أن نصوم من الشهر 3 أيام 13 و14 و15 13 و14 و15. He said, as occurs in the hadith of Abi Dhar, that the Messenger ﷺ commanded us to fast 3 days of the month, and they are the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th. They are the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th. These 3 days, ikhwan, are known as Ayyam al-Bid. Ayyam al-Bid. Ayyam al-Bid from the term Abiyad. And they are referred to as Ayyam al-Bid because of the fact that during those days the moon is at its fullest. And thus it is either a reference to the full moon, the moon being white, or the nights themselves being bright. And so the 3 days, 13th, 14th, and 15th, are known as the Ayyam al-Bid, and they are days, ikhwan, that one has been commanded and advised to fast. Now, it is not wajib to fast those 3 days, but here Abu Dhar radiallahu anhu, he said, Amarana Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam an nasum min al-shahri 3 ayyam. The Prophet sallallahu said, the Prophet sallallahu commanded us, which is what Abu Dhar mentioned. The Prophet commanded us. And the principle, ikhwan, the qaida usuliyah, is that the origin concerning the command is that al-amr yaqtadi al-wujub. Anything that is commanded by Allah Azza wa Jal or His Messenger, the command necessitates that the thing being commanded is wajib. Unless we have what is known as a sarif. The sarif is that thing that turns that command away from wujub to istihbab, to it being desirable. And that is a principle in the science of usul al-fiqh. Whenever we have a command, do such and such, then that command, ikhwan, if it comes from Allah, if it comes from His Messenger, then it is an indication of the fact that it is wajib. It is not necessary that we come across a hadith that says it is wajib to do such and such. It doesn't necessarily have to have that wording. But from the manners in which the wujub and the wajib commands occur is with this amr, and if'al. That is either that Prophet ﷺ says if'al, such and such, do such and such, or as Ahl-Ilm mentioned, we have in the hadith al-fi'l al-mudari' al-muqtarin bilam al-amr. The fi'l al-mudari', the present verb that, or the present tense verb which has with it the lam of amr. And that is that the Prophet ﷺ says فَلْ يَفْعَلْ فَلْ يَفْعَلْ, يعني then let him do, which is an indication of command. And so if the Prophet ﷺ commanded us ikhwan, then the thing being commanded is wajib. The growing of the beard, for example, occurs in this manner. The Prophet ﷺ, he commanded i'fa al-liha, commanded with i'fa al-liha, to leave them to grow. And thus the origin is that which the Prophet ﷺ commanded is wajib. That which the Prophet ﷺ commanded is wajib. Now, and so we have then though, from the evidences that which indicates that these 3 days are not wajib from the fasts, but they are strongly stressed. And if a person can perform them, then we should perform them in accordance with the Sunnah and the way of the companions. Of course, the best fast for any individual after the fast of Ramadan is Siyam Dawood. Is the fast of Dawood. Fast of Dawood is that he would fast a day and he would leave a day. Fast a day and he would leave a day. We have in the hadith of Abdul-Wahhāb ibn al-As, the Prophet ﷺ يصوم يوما ويفطر يوما وقال هذا صيام داود فحافظ عليه عبد الله ولم يخل به حتى توفي. That is, the Prophet ﷺ, he fasted one day and he left a day. And then he said that this indeed is the fast of Dawood. And as occurs in some other narrations, the best fast is the fast of Dawood. And so Abdullah ibn Amr, when the Prophet ﷺ told him that, he never abandoned it. He continued to do it until he passed away, until he died. Now, though it was not the constant practice of the Messenger of Allah, it was not the constant practice of the Messenger, but he did perform it regularly. Now, the Imam continues, وَنَهَى عَنْ صِيَامِ يَوْمَيْنِ يَوْمَ الْفِطْرِ وَيَوْمِ النَّهَرِ. He then goes on to mention the prohibition or the days that fasting is prohibited. He mentions that the Prophet ﷺ prohibited fasting on 2 days. And that is يوم الفطر, يعني عيد الفطر, and يوم النهر, عيد النهر or عيد الأضحى. Now, he said, أيام التشريق أيام أكل وشرب وذكر لله. He also mentioned that the days of Tashriq are days of eating and drinking and the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The days of Tashriq, ikhwan, are the 3 days that follow Eid. That is Eid al-Nahr, Eid al-Adha. The Eid, not the Eid of Ramadan, the Eid of Hajj. Ayam al-Tashriq, after the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, which is the day of Eid itself, we then have the 11th, the 12th, and the 13th. The 11th, 12th, and 13th are known as Ayyam al-Tashriq. It is likewise not permissible to fast during those days. It is not permissible to fast during those days, since the Prophet ﷺ has commanded the Muslimun to eat and drink upon those days, except for the one that does not have enough money and wherewithal means to buy an animal to slaughter during Hajj. So if a person is on Hajj and he is not able to find an animal to slaughter, to purchase an animal for slaughtering during Hajj, then the Prophet ﷺ commanded with the fasting of those days. And in fact, the command has occurred in the Quran that a person fasts عشرة أيام ثلاثة في الحج وسبعة إذا رجعتم تلك عشرة كاملة. Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions 3 during Hajj and 7 when one returns, and that is 10 complete days. So the 3 during Hajj are the Ayyam al-Tashriq, which is permissible for a person who does not find an animal and have an animal to slaughter. It is permissible for him to fast during those days. Anyone else though should not fast on the days of Tashriq, since they are days of eating and drinking. They are like an extension, if you like, of the celebratory period of Eid al-Adha. Now, he mentions وَقَالَ لَا يَصُومَنَّ أَحَدُكُمْ يَوْمَ الْجُمُعَةِ إِلَّا أَن يَصُومَ يَوْمًا قَبْلَهُ أَوْ يَوْمًا بَعْدَهُ مُتَّفَقٌ عَلَيْهِ. The Prophet ﷺ likewise prohibited fasting on the day of Jumu'ah. And he said, you should not fast on the day of Jumu'ah, except that you fast a day before it or a day after it. The fasting on the day of Jumu'ah is prohibited and not permissible except that a person fasts a day before or a day after. From the days similarly, one that even though Shaykh Sa'di didn't mention them, is the day of Sabt, Yawm al-Sabt, yani Saturday. There is similarly a prohibition against fasting on a Saturday. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned, as occurs in the hadith in the Sunnah of Imam Abu Dawud, in the Sunnah of Imam Tirmidhi, the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, لا يصومن أو لا تصوموا يوم السبت لا تصوموا يوم السبت إلا فيما افترض عليكم لا تصوموا يوم السبت إلا فيما افترض عليكم. Do not fast on a Saturday except with that which is wajib upon you. Except with that which is wajib upon you. So مثلا a person has days to make up from Ramadan, it is permissible for him to fast those days on a Jumu'ah and on a Sabt. So he has days of Ramadan. If he were to fast on Friday and Saturday, then there isn't any problem with him doing so. The origin is that he abandons those days. And then the Prophet ﷺ ended the hadith by saying, if he were to do so, then he should break his fast, even if it is to chew onto the bark of a tree. Even if it is to chew onto the bark of a tree, he should break his fast. There is almost yearly the issue of fasting Yawm al-Arafah or Yawm al-Ashura on a Saturday. Almost in the last perhaps 5 or 6 years, it has almost yearly occurred that one of those days, one of the virtuous days of fasting, falls on a Saturday. And so the issue of whether or not one should fast on that Saturday is an issue that arises. يعني we have مثلا يوم العاشوراء أو يوم مثلا العرفة falling on a Saturday. Prophet ﷺ, he said concerning those days, يُكَفِّرُ السَّنَةِ الْمَاضِيَةِ وَالْبَاقِيَةِ, that they expiate the last year and next year. But it falls on a Saturday. And naturally, ikhwan, we have a prohibition. So do we give preference to the prohibition or to the fasting and the virtual fasting? It is an issue ikhwan that scholars have different concerning. From Ahl al-Ilm and those who are staunch on remaining firm upon the prohibition. That is, that one should not fast on Saturday, even if it is Yawm al-Ashura or Yawm al-Arafah. And from Ahl al-Ilm, like the likes of Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen, those who have permitted fasting on those days and have or hold that the prohibition does not encompass the virtuous days. It does not encompass virtuous days. The Imam then he went on to mention وَقَالْ مَنْ صَامَ رَمَضَانَ إِيمَانًا وَاحْتِسَابًا غُفِرَ لَهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِهِ وَمَنْ قَامَ لَيْلَةَ الْقَدْرِ إِيمَانًا وَاحْتِسَابًا غُفِرَ لَهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِهِ. He mentions the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, whosoever fasts Ramadan إِيمَانًا وَاحْتِسَابًا, having iman in it and seeking reward for doing so, then he will have his previous sins expiated. That is, the month of Ramadan is an expiation for one's previous sins. And that, ikhwan, is the month of Ramadan. Ramadan is a shahr, kamil, a full month. And so it is not said then, and one should not rejoice at the fact that, well, I did 7 days this year. We hear people boasting in that manner. Yeah, alhamdulillah, I did 12 days this year. Or I did 16 days this year. Ikhwan, the month of Ramadan is a month, kamil, full month. And Allah Azza wa Jal mentions at the end of Ramadan, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصم ومن كان مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر ولتكملوا العدة ولتكبروا الله على ما هداكم. Allah Azza wa Jal mentions, after mentioning the month of Ramadan, the lights in which the Quran is revealed as a guidance for the people and a clarification of the guidance in the Furqan, whosoever witnesses the month, then let him fast it. And Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned, whosoever is sick or upon a journey, there are a number of other days. يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ. Allah wants ease for you, and He does not want hardship for you. وَلِتُكْمِلُ الْعِدَّةِ. And He wants for you to complete the period. And that is, and has an indication of the fact that the period and completing the period is one that is easy. And I remember Ikhwan being new Muslims or prior to embracing. The Shaitan presents this issue of Ramadan as one of the issues that are you sure you're going to be able to act this Muslim, be a Muslim? Are you sure you're going to be able to deal with a full month and no food and drink? Shaitan presents that to the Muslim, to the new Muslim, or to the one that is intending to embrace, as a barrier and as a smoke screen in turning him away from Islam. And that, Ikhwan, of course, for the one who enters Islam and then fasts his first Ramadan, he realizes, Ikhwan, he doesn't want it to finish. Wallahi, I remember the first month of Ramadan that we fasted as new Muslims. By Allah, Ikhwan, we didn't want Ramadan to finish. And it was the period of sweet, a period of food and drink and khayr, a period of celebration thereafter. Ibadah that strengthens a person, causes them to draw close to Allah Azza wa Jal. If we really benefit from Ramadan, really, truly, and not just consider it a period that Ramadan is coming, we're going to have to fast every day now and it's going to be difficult. No. That we consider it a period, a mawsim of khayr. Sufidat al-shayateen. The shayateen are restricted within that month. The doors of Jannah are open, all of them. They have a month and a period of khayr. A period, Ikhwan, where we're able to purge ourselves, purify ourselves, get right with Allah Azza wa Jal. And so we should benefit from the period, consider it a period of khayr that we can't wait to come. And that is the attitude of the believer. That was the attitude of the Salaf of this ummah. That is the attitude of one of the upright and the righteous. And they can't wait for Ramadan. They feel that we need a Ramadan to purify ourselves and to rectify our shortcomings. Likewise mentions the hadith, whoever fasts Ramadan having iman in it and seeking reward for it, it expiates that which has proceeded from sin. And whosoever stands Laylat al-Qadr, whosoever stands on the night of Qadr, Laylat al-Qadr, imanan wa ihtisaba, having iman in it and ihtisaba, seeking the reward for it, غُفِرَ لَهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِهِ. And so if one stands in qiyam, one stands in prayer in the night of Laylat al-Qadr, then he will have his previous sins forgiven. Laylat al-Qadr, Ikhwan, is a night that the Prophet ﷺ was shown, and then the exact night itself was lifted and was removed. The Prophet ﷺ said, but perhaps it is khayr for you. The fact that the actual night is removed, perhaps it is khayr for you. From Ahl al-Ilm also hold that it is the same night every year, that it itself does not change, that it is one particular night every year. And of course, the most likely of those nights is the 27th. That which the majority of the muhaqqiqun are upon is that it is not the same night every year, and that it is one that moves and changes from year to year. And that, Wallahu ta'ala a'lam, is the most correct of the positions, that it moves and it changes from year to year. One of the evidences of that is the hadith in Sahih Bukhari. The Prophet ﷺ on that year was shown Laylat al-Qadr, and that it would be a rainy night. It would be one that would be followed by rain, which indicates then that rain is from the signs of Laylatul Qadr. A rainy night is from the signs of Laylatul Qadr. It doesn't mean that every Laylatul Qadr will rain, but rain is from its signs. Prophet ﷺ was shown Laylatul Qadr and it was a rainy night. In the narrator of the hadith he mentioned, I remember the Prophet ﷺ sitting back from sajda in Salatul Fajr, and the mud from the rain was dripping from his face. The mud from the rain was dripping from his face. Because the masjid of the Messenger ﷺ at that time, when it was made of wood, and it had date palm leaves covering the masjid, and it wasn't a solid structure and shelter as our masajid are now. That it was made from wood. In fact, some narrations indicate that it had no sides. It had no sides. It was a covering, and initially that it was a covering made of wood covered by date palm trees. So the narrator mentions that I remember sitting back or looking at the Prophet ﷺ sitting back from sajda, and mud was dripping down the face of the Messenger ﷺ from the rain. And that he mentioned was the 21st night. It was the 21st night. And so what is correct is that it occurs in the last 10 nights of Ramadan. It may occur on any one of the nights, but it is most likely to occur on the odd nights. Be aware, though, that it could possibly fall on an even night. And there is a nice piece of research that Shaykh and others have done concerning the fact that and the possibility of it falling on an even night. And that is with a view to the consideration of the end of Ramadan. That if one considers the fact that the end of Ramadan could possibly be 29 nights, then the last 10 nights of Ramadan will start ordinarily true. If we have a full 30 days, the last 10 nights begins from the 21st. From the 21st. But if it is a 29-day month, then the last 10 will begin from the 20th. And so what should be considered is that you shouldn't look at the last 10 nights of Ramadan starting from the 21st night and that's it. Why? Because we do not know if this Ramadan will be a 30-day Ramadan or a 29-day Ramadan. But whatever the case is, that 29-day Ramadan or 30-day Ramadan will always have a last 10 nights. There will always be a last 10 nights of Ramadan. Whether it's a 30-day Ramadan or a 29-day Ramadan, there will always be a last 10 nights. Now that last 10 nights, we will not know when the last 10 nights are until Ramadan is over. Is everybody following me on this? Yeah. We do not know when the last 10 nights are until Ramadan is over and we see that it was either a 29-day night Ramadan or a 30-night Ramadan. If it was a 30-day Ramadan, then we know that the last 10 nights occurred and began on the 21st. If it is a 29-day Ramadan, then the last 10 nights actually began the day before, which would have been an even night. And so based on that, it is possible that Laylatul Qadr may fall on what we think is an even night, but it is an odd night as it relates to the fact that it is from the last 10 nights of Ramadan. And so Shaykh therefore, on the basis of that, argues the point that it is possible for Laylatul Qadr to fall on an even night, and that is with the consideration of Ramadan either being either a 29-day Ramadan or a 30-day Ramadan. And what that then means, Ikhwan, is that we should not do the practice or carry out the practice that is regularly done, and that is 21st night masjid is run. 22nd masjid is empty. 23rd masjid is run. Packed. 24th masjid is empty. And so on, believing that as long as we're in the masjid on an even night, then we will accord Laylatul Qadr. Why? Because the fact that Laylatul Qadr could well be an even night. So if we believe on an odd night, so if we understand then that Laylatul Qadr could be an odd night or an even night, then we should be in the masjid every night in the last 10 days at least. Though we should be in the masjid every night, but the last 10 days, no doubt, Ikhwan, we should be negligent concerning the odd and even nights, because we do not know which of them Laylatul Qadr will fall upon. But Laylatul Qadr, it has its signs. From its signs, Ikhwan, is that it is a still night. And it is, in terms of its temperature, the Prophet ﷺ referred it to, or resembled it to the night of Tihama, which is a night that is not too warm and not too cool. And so it is a still night. In terms of its temperature, its climate is ideal. Similarly, there is a tranquility that is present on that night that is sensed. One can sense the tranquility on that night. Many of Ahlul mentioned that is possibly because of the large number of angels that are present in the dunya on that night. There is authentic hadith that Shaykh authenticates that on Laylatul Qadr there are more angels on earth than there are stones. On Laylatul Qadr there are more angels on earth than there are stones. If you imagine, Ikhwan, the stones that are present in the dunya, the pebbles, and the many stones that are present in the dunya. Imagine the various deserts of the dunya and the amount of stones and pebbles that are present upon them, and then consider the fact that on Laylatul Qadr there are more angels on earth than there are stones. And thus, Ikhwan, that the tranquility, the presence of those angels can be sensed. Similarly, from the signs of Laylatul Qadr is that the sun rises the following morning without rays. That it rises initially like a bronze disc. It doesn't have any rays, you can look directly at it without problem. And that is something, of course, if one that the person who observes it is able to see. And we used to, myself, I would be some of the brothers who were students. We used to, and every night in the last day of Ramadan, we used to go to a particular place in Medina, and we used to observe the sun rising in the morning. And it is manifest. The night of Laylatul Qadr, the way the sun rises the following day, it is manifestly different to the sun rising on the other nights, or in the morning after the other nights of the month. And so it's something that is observable, something that is witnessed. As we mentioned, from its signs is the presence of rain. It may possibly rain on Laylatul Qadr, and that is from its signs. It doesn't necessitate that if it doesn't rain, it wasn't Laylatul Qadr, but it is from its signs. Now, Shaykh mentions, it rounds up with these two issues, and that is, or this one issue, and that is, وكان صلى الله عليه وسلم يعتكف العشر الأواخر من رمضان حتى توفاه الله واعتكف أزواجه من بعده متفق عليه. He said that indeed the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم used to make i'tikaf in the last 10 days of Ramadan until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took his life. And then his wives after him would perform the i'tikaf after him. As far as the affair of i'tikaf is concerned, then the i'tikaf is without doubt from the greatest of the acts of worship that one may perform during the month of Ramadan, and it is done in the last 10 days of Ramadan ordinarily, though it is permissible to do it earlier in the last 10 days. The Prophet ﷺ, on one year he did it in the middle 10 days, and after the first 10 days he followed that up with i'tikaf in the middle of Ramadan. And so the affair of i'tikaf, though his ordinary practice, was to perform it in the last 10 days of Ramadan. And it is, as our scholars mentioned, لزوم المسجد لطاعة الله. It is to cling to the masjid for the purpose of طاعة الله, for the purpose of obedience to Allah. That is that one remains in his mu'takaf, he remains in the place that he has designated for himself within the masjid. He establishes ibadah, and recites the Quran, studies knowledge and ilm, and he benefits from being and remaining in the masjid as a period of drawing closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The affair of i'tikaf, ikhwan, is one that if it is done outside of the masajid al-thalath, outside of the three masjids, and we'll discuss that issue briefly, it is one that, or it is an affair that the origin is that one remains within the masjid, and leaving the masjid breaks one's i'tikaf. Leaving the masjid breaks one's i'tikaf. Though Ahlul mentioned the permissibility of leaving the masjid for certain necessities. The Prophet ﷺ was visited by his family, and he walked them outside of the masjid for a distance. He accompanied them after leaving the masjid and walking with them. Similarly, that a person leaves the masjid for food or for drink, then that in and of itself does not nullify one's i'tikaf. It does not nullify one's i'tikaf. But just to leave the place of i'tikaf without there being a necessity for him to do so, then that nullifies his i'tikaf. The issue, of course, that relates to i'tikaf is, where is i'tikaf legislated? Where is i'tikaf legislated? As far as i'tikaf is concerned, then there is a hadith, authentic hadith. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that there is no i'tikaf illa fil masajid al-thalath. There is no i'tikaf except in the three masjids. Except in the three masjids. Masjid al-Haram, Masjid al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and Masjid al-Aqsa. There is no i'tikaf outside of those three masjids. From Ahlul Ilm, those who hold that is not an absolute prohibition, but rather it refers to the fact that there is no ideal i'tikaf, and that is the best, most virtuous i'tikaf, and that it was not an outright prohibition against making i'tikaf. It is an indication of the most virtuous place to make i'tikaf, not the only place. And Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, in discussing the issue, he says that Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned concerning approaching one's wife, since one cannot have relations with his wife during i'tikaf, that Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions, وَلَا تُبَاشِرُوهُنَّ وَأَنْتُمْ عَاكِفُونَ فِي الْمَسَاجِدِ. Do not have relations with them while you are making i'tikaf in the masajid. And so here he mentions that Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions here masajid, and this is a jama', and it is a plural. Don't make i'tikaf with them while you are don't have relations with them while you are making i'tikaf in the masajid. And so since Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions the plural, that indicates then that i'tikaf is performed in more than just those three masajid. Those who hold the first position respond by saying masajid is a jama', وأقل عدده أو عدده ثلاثة. That the term masajid is a plural. Its lowest number is 3. And so on the basis of that, there is no contradiction between the ayah and the hadith. Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned masajid. The lowest number in that plural is 3. And that is in accordance with the hadith. There is no i'tikaf touching the 3 masjids. And so it is an issue of one reason that the scholars differ concerning. Safety is in clinging, of course, to the prohibition and remaining or performing i'tikaf either in one of those 3 masajid, but it's not from the issues of one that we would have or make inkar or have a strong position against anyone who didn't cling to the prohibition and decided to make i'tikaf in one's local masjid. And so if that was the case and the person wanted to do so, then we wouldn't make inkar of them. We wouldn't make inkar of them and speak ill of them for opposing the sunnah. Rather, we will say that they have opposed that which is apparently the strongest of the positions. And that was or from the last of the affairs, the last of the issues that he discusses in the section. He said, وَقَالَ لَا تَشُدَّ الرِّحَالِ إِلَّا إِلَى 3 مساجد المسجد الحرام ومسجدي هذا والمسجد الأقصى متفق عليه. He said that the Prophet ﷺ said that one should not travel except to 3 masjid. Masjid al-Haram, wa Masjidi Hada, and this masjid of mine, and Masjid al-Aqsa. That is as it relates to traveling for the purpose of the masjid itself. As far as traveling for a dars, traveling for a dawah, traveling for a lecture series, traveling for other reasons, and that is something that continues to be the case, and this hadith doesn't prohibit that. This hadith is addressing and speaking of traveling for the masjid itself. Traveling for the masjid itself. As far as traveling towards the masjid because of what is taking place within the masjid, then there is no prohibition in this hadith. And with that, before we come to the end of Kitab al-Siyam in Manhaj Salikin, and we hope that in this short space of time that we've covered some of the most important and the more important issues related to fasting of Ramadan and the supererogatory fast. And we'll run upon the notes, inshallah. Allah ta'ala a'lam. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. No, as far as Laylatul Qadr is concerned, then the night is one thing, but what a person does on that night is another. What we forgot to mention, it's good that we mentioned that, is that Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned Laylatul Qadr khayrun min alfi shahr. That Laylatul Qadr is khayr and it is better than 1,000 months. And 1,000 months equates to 83 years. And so whatever a person does on that night from acts of worship, then it is as though that person has performed that act over a period of 83 years. Maybe that a person just says Allahu Akbar. If he does so on Laylatul Qadr and it is Laylatul Qadr, then that will be equivalent to 83 years of takbir. If a person performs rak'atayn and he catches Laylatul Qadr, then that is equivalent to 83 years of 2 rak'ah nafila. Person gives sadaqah on that night, that is equivalent to 83 years of giving sadaqah. And at night there's a big fun, there's not a joke. A person catches one, then he has caught a lifetime of ibadah by catching one night. And this is from the virtue of Allah Azza wa Jalla upon this ummah. That our lifespan is not as long as some of the previous nations, but Allah has blessed us within this short lifespan with that which is of great and immense virtue. One night equivalent to 83 years. And so anything that is done from acts of worship and acts of khair are multiplied upon by 1,000 months, as we mentioned, there's equivalent to 83 years. It doesn't necessitate that a person is in the masjid to do so. Mathalan, if it so happened that he was not able to attend the masjid, then he performs acts of worship and khair in his home. He performs the nafilah and the nawafil within his home. The Prophet ﷺ did not perform Qiyam al-Layl every night of Ramadan in the masjid. In fact, he did it for 2 nights. And then he abandoned it on the 3rd night, fearing that it would become wajib upon the believers. And so when the companions they came out, they waited for the Prophet ﷺ to come, and he didn't come. And when he was questioned concerning that, he said that I feared that it would be made wajib upon you because of me being constant upon it. And so the affair then the acts that one may perform may be done within one's home. And so, for example, a sister who can't make it to the masjid should despair and feel that the only khair and the only good is that which is done in the masjid. No. It is possible that a woman can far supersede within her home, the acts of righteousness that are done by some of the men within the masjid. Remembering and bearing in mind upon that Laylatul Qadr begins from Maghrib. And so those righteous actions one may perform then from the time of Maghrib. That is the time that the night begins. And so from that time until the sun rises, as Allah Azza wa Jalla, not until Fajr comes in, but until the sun rises, Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned, Salamun hiya hatta matla'il Fajr. That it is salam until Fajr rises. Al-Ilm mentioned that khair, the night itself, extends after Fajr until the rising of the sun. And so there are some narrations that indicate that the angels, they ascend at the rising of the sun. And they remain in the dunya until the rising of the sun. And there are other indications that point towards the fact that the khair of the night extends until sunrise. And so the night then is one that one should capitalize upon. Any statement that a person says for good, any enjoining of the good, forbidding of the evil, a good statement that a person says to his wife, that he puts food in her mouth, any form of khair, anything that is from good deeds, is multiplied upon on that night. Anything. And so one should try and busy himself, if one feels that this may well be Laylatul Qadr, that one should busy himself with khair from the beginning of the night, which is Maghrib, up until the end of the night, up until sunrise. One of the issues that oftentimes happens is that, and it usually intensifies in the last 10 nights, that the dinner invites intensify. And the iftar meals become plentiful. And after the iftar meal, we sit down, as you will say here, with line up until qiyam, up until the establishment of the salah. If it is Laylatul Qadr, ikhwan, then that is a huge period that we've wasted. If it was Laylatul Qadr, then that period is a massive period that we've missed out on. Maghrib to Qiyam al-Layl, it is a massive period of time, ikhwan, that we've wasted when we could have been benefiting from that time. And so that is not to say that after the breaking of the fast, I want to just leave that. But be careful, Ikhwan, about wasting time during this precious period. And that is throughout the whole of Ramadan, Ikhwan, particularly the last 10 nights of Ramadan. Allah Ta'ala.
That's an answer. On that specific, is there any specific time that might be the best time of the year? Just actually, I don't know, when I last year.
No doubt. The whole of the night is virtuous, but the last third of the night is extra virtuous. The last third is extra virtuous, and thus it is virtue upon virtue. The whole of the night is virtuous, but the last third is extra virtuous. Good question. When you said that the day, fasting on the day of Arafah, expiates sin for the previous year and the year to come, is it major sins, or is major sins a part of that, or just the minor sins? The scholars differ concerning these acts of worship that have in them the expiation of sin. Does it encompass the major sin, or is it specific to the minor sins? You will find a large majority from among the people of knowledge holding that it is a reference to the expiation of minor sins and not major sins. But many of the people of knowledge hold that major sins must be expiated with tawbah. Well, there are some statements from Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah that indicate that he held that the major sins may possibly be expiated within or on the basis of the performance of those acts of worship. And he mentions the fact that Allah Azza wa Jal forgives sins, expiates sins for certain actions that are small indeed, but they have in them the expiation of sin. And so the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal is vast. Since the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal is vast, there is no reason why it is restricted to minor sin. But the majority, as we mentioned, many of the people of knowledge hold that it is an expiation of minor sins, but major sins need specific tawbah. It's specific tawbah. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to give us life until we reach this Ramadan, make it a period of benefit and khayr and knowledge and ibadah for us. إنه جواد كريم وهو ولي ذلك والقادر عليه. We thank the brothers Ikhwan for hosting us again for this period. We hope, Ikhwan, that the period has left something for benefit, and Allah Azza wa Jalla reward all the brothers and sisters who have attended. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless you all, bless your families and your children, and keep your masajid and your communities firm and united. Ameen. Allah ta'ala a'lam, sallallahu sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad, wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.